What the Russians have now with the aviation industry, and to what extent they are able to manufacture not only military, but also new civilian aircraft. We will talk about all this in the video. In the summer of 2022, the government of the Russian Federation adopted a program for the development of civil aircraft construction, according to which, from 2023 to 2030, enterprises of the Russian aviation industry should produce a total of up to 500 civil aircraft of all types. Of course, the lion's share in this story falls on the publicized projects MS-21 and SSJ-100 dry Superjet 270 and 142 copies, respectively. Although it seems very revealing here that the Russians were unable to completely replace the same SSJ-100 drive for 4 years and $2 billion of costs. But for us, the point of greater interest in this story is that by the year 2030, the Russians planned to produce 70 aircraft of the Tu-214 type at the facilities of the Kazan Aviation Production and Industrial Association, which at the same time is engaged in the assembly of the supersonic strategic bomber of the ancient Tu-160M from blanks of Soviet times and repair and modernization of Tu-22M3. The Russian Federation's attention to this plan in the segment of civil aviation, which at some points overlaps very closely with the segment of military aircraft production, was also paid attention to by the American analytical institution Jamestown Foundation. In their publication, the experts of this institution present their arguments as to why the Russian Federation is unlikely to be able to produce all 500 planned civil aircraft by the year 2030, and these arguments look like this. First of all, the Russians do not have enough personnel to implement their aviation plans. In particular, at the moment, 40% of all aircraft manufacturing enterprises of the Russian Federation recognize a labor shortage. The shortage of personnel in the industry as a whole is estimated at 14,000 people, in particular in the line of United Aviation Corporation, UAC, as the main producer of civil and military aircraft, more than 8,000 people. In turn, in order to at least maintain the existing pace of production, by the year 2026, Russian aircraft construction enterprises must receive at least 300 units of scarce equipment produced in the USA, Europe, Japan, South Korea, or Taiwan, access to which is closed to Russians due to Western sanctions. And on the basis of these two factors, the Jamestown Foundation concludes that the Russian government will not be able to achieve the target indicators of its civil aviation program at all. But from Defense Express, we can assume here that in fact, in this story, the Russian government is interested in the process itself, and not the final result. And that the plan for the production of 72 Tu-214 aircraft at the facilities of the Kazan Aviation Production and Industrial Association, which also assembles the Tu-160M and repairs the Tu-22, may actually turn out to be a method of indirect stimulation of the Russian military-industrial complex. As well as the overall plan for 500 aircraft by 2030, where the United Aircraft Corporation should be the main executor. At least before the beginning of the full-scale invasion, there was a situation when the aviation industry enterprises had to supply the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation with their planes or helicopters at a direct loss to themselves, the amount of which was to be covered later by cross-subsidization from the state treasury. The most revealing example was the Ka-52, the production of which cost 200 million rubles in loss. But the most expensive model of Russian aircraft is actually the Tu-160M with an approximate cost of 16 billion rubles per unit, and what part of this cost was then to be covered from the state treasury is an open question. However, it seems that at this stage, the Russians must first solve a more prosaic task, to have time to put 4 Tu-160MS, which were physically produced in the previous few years, into service by the end of 2023.